So we've been working in this playground method, I called mine Filter Playground, where we've been creating queries and adding filters so that we can learn how to build up queries. Now this method has very hardwired values in it. So for example, city equals Tokyo. And in general, you want to have a bit more flexibility. You want to allow users to specify the property values that they want to search on. That's okay though, because we've only been using this method for our own purposes for learning. The real method that gets invoked by the Show Conferences page is Query Conferences. So we already defined one implementation for Query Conferences. It's very simple. All it does is get all the conferences. So if we go over to the Show Conferences page, we see all the conferences that have been created. We could add a filter here in the page, for example, search for city is Chicago, and then search, but actually our filter is going to be ignored, even though up here it tells us that it used the filters, because on the back end it's calling Query Conferences, and the implementation of Query Conferences gets all the conferences and doesn't care about filters. So what you're going to be doing next is updating Query Conferences so that it does respond to the filters. So there's a few things that you're going to need to do. One is that you need to copy in the conference query form.java file and put it in the form package. And then you're going to need to change the signature of Query Conferences so that it takes a conference query form. You're also going to have to import the conference query form. Then you need to update the implementation of Query Conferences to return the result of conference query form.getQuery. So this is all you need to do. So you return conference query form.getQuery.list. This will actually work. There's actually a fair amount of code going on behind the scenes in conference query form, but if you make these changes, your filters will start to work. But let's take a look at conference query form.getQuery so you understand what's going on there. After you copy conference query form over, you may find you need to refresh your project before it actually shows up. Oh, there it is, good. So conference query form has already been implemented in full. You don't need to implement anything, but I really encourage you to read through it and understand what it does. It checks for inequality filters. Make sure that there's only one inequality filter in it. It also checks if you have an inequality filter to make sure that the sort order is in the right order. Then it adds each filter in turn, constructs the query, and returns the query. One other thing I want to bring to your attention is this enum here that defines the operators. And you see EQ is defined to be equal to equals, and we're going to see how that is used in the APIs Explorer. So here we are in the APIs Explorer. We'll go to Query Conferences. Now you see we have the request body where we can add a property, and the property is filters. And then we add a filter. You keep clicking and adding these things. So let's add a property, filter on field. But now we want to filter on city equals something. So we need to specify the operator. And remember the enum listing the operators where EQ was set to equals. And now we add the value that we want to check against. And we'll do London just because I know we have some conferences in London. So this is how you specify the filters here. Now let's execute it and see if it's going to work. Oops. City's not right. I think maybe it's supposed to be capital C at this point. So this is defined in the conference query form. So taking a quick look, actually I should have entered all capitals for the city. So I'll go back and do that again. City with a capital. The operator defined as EQ and the value London. This time we find all the conferences whose city is London. There isn't that much code that you need to change to get the Show Conferences page to respect the filters, but there is actually quite a lot of code going on in the conference query form class that it would be good for you to read through and understand. Now let's take a look at what happens in the Show Conferences page after we deploy the app to AppSpot. So here I went to the All tab and we see all the conferences. Now I'm going to add a filter. And I want to filter on max attendees greater than 100. Add another filter. I just want to get the conferences in February. This search, let me run this query. I failed to get the conferences. Now if we run this same query in the APIs Explorer, and it's max attendees greater than 100, start month is 2, it's cold and dark in February, so we want to find a nice conference to go to, and we execute. And again we got an error. You see again, it's the back-end error, and this is because we actually don't have a composite index to satisfy this query. So this is one danger of giving the users a free hand in adding filters in any way they want. You need to be really careful to make sure that all the necessary composite indexes have been created. So now the query conferences method can handle multiple filters, but there's still an optimization that you could make to it. See here that the query result shows the organizer's display name. Well, the display name must be dynamically calculated for each conference because the organizer's display name is not something we store in the conference. We dynamically calculate it. So let's look again at the query conferences method. So now I've changed it a bit so that I call conference query form.getQuery, which returns me a list of the conferences. And then what I'm going to do is iterate over each of the conferences, figure out the organizer for that conference, and then I'm going to preload all the organizers. And this is going to avoid separate data store gets for each conference, because for each conference we have to get the profile of the organizer and then get the display name out of the profile. So this is what the final implementation of query conferences would look like, and you can find this in the lesson 4 folder.